like to call to order this meeting of the Executive Committee, the Waste Reduction District of Monroe County. And Mr. McGlasson, can you please call the roll?
Piedmont Smith,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
Wiltz.
Here.
Note that Ms. Wiltz is here virtually. She have a quorum.
Councilor Wiltz, can you start your video, or is it not feasible?
It is started.
But I don't think we have to vote on anything. Do we?
Just the minutes.
We have to, we can do that at the next district board meeting.
Certainly.
Two of us.
Can you not hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
You have to be visible to vote.
Right, my video is turned on.
Well, if worst
Wait.
case scenario,
Is there a sticker over it?
worst case scenario, we can do it at the next board meeting.
Yeah.
The three of us can vote at the next board meeting on the minutes. That's the only thing we have to vote on.
There are two of us here. We could vote on the minutes
Yeah,
without
that's true.
Councilor Wiltz.
And Councilor Wiltz was not in attendance for the RMI meeting,
Oh,
which is your second set of minutes.
okay. All right, let's just keep it moving.
Okay, so we will look at the executive committee meeting minutes for our meeting with Rocky Mountain Institute about the landfill solar on April 29th. Their motion to approve.
Move to approve.
I can second that if I'm allowed to.
Okay. So let's vote on those minutes. Councilor Wiltz. Oh, Councilor Wiltz can't vote because he can't see her.
Probably can't second then.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll second it.
Okay.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. And then we have the executive committee meeting of April 29th. A motion to approve that one.
Motion to approve.
Second. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
And I will also vote. Let me just before, sorry. There were a couple of minor corrections.
Yes, I received those and those are incorporated in the version here for signature if they're approved.
Okay, the only substantive ones was that Commissioner Thomas, you were not there as far as I recall.
Yeah, no, I was not there, and I am listed as virtual. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that
needs
makes
to be
sense, but I can still vote on the minutes because I watched the meeting after.
And then the only other substantive correction is that Mr. Winia is the chairperson, not the vice chairperson of the CAC.
Correct. I did try to demote him, yes.
You're not getting away with that. Okay, sorry. So now let's vote. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Got the executive committee meeting minutes done. Any comments on the board of director meeting minutes? I had a few small corrections that I put in the Dropbox.
Yes, I've seen those and have made those. Report back.
Any other corrections, comments on those minutes?
No.
Councilor Wiltz?
Talking about the regular board minutes at this point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then we can just move those to the full board for approval. Mr. McGlasson, would you like to tell us about resolution 2025-09?
Sure. As mentioned in the memo on page 11, due to a recent resignation and one of the site operators and moving staff around to fill that regular scheduled position, and looking at our scheduling and what scheduling patterns with time off and time off available to our regular site operators, Mr. Long and Joey Long and I thought it would be in the best interest of the district to actually hire 2 replacement sale operators at this time. Just to help alleviate some potential scheduling issues that we saw for people taking the time off that they want or need. As indicated in the memo, the replacement operators don't have any impact on the budget. It's just an extra body to fill in when somebody's off, which is going to happen whether we have 3 replacement operators, 4, 5, or 6 of them. So what this resolution, all this resolution does is increase the pool of replacement operators from 5 to 6. And I would note for the record, in interviewing interviewing candidates for the replacement operator position, we actually did have 2 that we were interested in hiring. And it was a difficult decision, but we had to hire somebody at that time. So we do actually already have a person in mind for the position if the board approves this change.
Great. Sounds good to me. Counselor Wiltz, do you have any questions or comments on that one?
I do not.
Commissioner Thomas? No. Okay, so we can move that to the whole board. Next, we have a declaration of surplus property.
Yeah, if you recall, we did the last board meeting, got a check to Curry Auto Group for the 2 new green business trucks. Those are both in our possession and up and running for us now. So we have 2 extra trucks that are taking up space on our lot that we'd like to get rid of.
One of them still has some value to it, and the other one is ancient.
Yeah, on our asset inventory, one does still have some value, and I mean that's just a function of we generally apply a 10-year expected lifespan to those vehicles, and so we purchased it 5 years ago, and that's just a function of the depreciation given the expected life of the vehicle. If it's declared surplus, we use the GovDeals auction website, and we have the ability to set minimums, and we'll endeavor to get as much out of it as we can.
Will that money? Oh, okay, yeah. So that'll be money that will just go to our reserves.
It'll just be a miscellaneous income. It was not budgeted revenue for the year, and there has no bearing on our appropriations.
Two just language things in the actual resolution. So at the end of the first paragraph, it says it was intended and be considered surplus property for the purpose of resale, reuse, or recycle. I would change that to recycling. Recycle is not a noun. And then the same thing under number 1.
Okay.
The thing I would like to see is specificity about trying to sell at an auction. What if it doesn't sell at auction, then what happens? So, because it could be donated, there might be somebody like a redraw, profit. There could be, right? So I think it's important to know what's going to happen with if it doesn't sell it, that it's going to auction. If it doesn't sell at auction, we're going to do whatever.
Okay.
I just think that kind of specificity is really good to have for transparency's sake.
And would that be something that we put into the now therefore the resolution, or would that be something in the memo regarding the agenda item?
I think memo's fine.
Okay.
I think it's fine. I just think it's helpful to have that.
Yeah. What are our plans?
Yep.
If it doesn't
Yep.
sell at auction.
You're going to try to sell it auction. If it doesn't sell at auction, we're going to do this. Yeah. Where the money's going to go when it gets sold at auction.
Councilor Wiltz? I can see you now. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, Julie. Any other comments on this item? Now we can't hear you, Kate. It's always something.
I'm
Now we can-
sorry.
Now we
No,
can-
I don't have any comments. I logged off and logged back in to get my camera to work. So
Okay,
let's proceed.
all right. Okay, well then we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Back to Earth Collective Composting Program final report.
Yeah, this is a kind of a follow-up to the discussion at last month's board meeting with the proposed service agreement for the next phase of this, but it became apparent in that discussion that not all board members had seen the interim report that was provided last November by One Sustainable Joe, and I mentioned at that time that he was also working on a final report, given that the initial agreement term had just ended. So both of those reports are included in here for informational purposes, discussion if there's a desire to do so. Mr. Winnie of One Sustainable Joe is here if there's any questions. And I would note that I do have a follow-up to this if after there's any questions or discussions regarding the report.
Mr. Winnie, do you want to add anything or?
I don't have anything particular to point out. Just happy to answer any questions that you have about the reports that are included in the packet.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Winia or comments? It was curious that I think it was site number 2. The amount of materials just kept going up and down, up and down.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what's happening there? Or?
Yes, I mentioned briefly in the report that it's just basically the inconsistency of users entering the weight of the material, weighing it and submitting it before they add it to the pile.
Oh,
So
okay.
I noticed that trend the very first dip in April of their first, I guess it'd be their 4th month participating. And so I spoke with the turners there who were adding the material, and they mentioned that there were no significant fluctuations in their generation, and just that they weren't consistent in weighing and submitting the weight, which is why I also noted that of the totals provided for the program, about 10 to 20%, I would estimate that about 10 to 20% more material was diverted than what was recorded. So you can see, particularly with site number 2, because they contributed about half of the overall program totals, but the overall program totals vary with or fluctuate with the same variations that that particular site does. And I did what I could to reinforce the value of weighing the material. I showed them their weight trends, so they were aware of the impact it was having. And it was, I guess, a matter of an item that's beyond my control.
Yeah. How does does the family, the household that brings the material, are they the ones who are supposed to weigh it?
Yes.
And is there a scale there, or how does that work?
Correct. There is a scale stationed at all of the compost bins. And the reason that site number 2 is an exception is they are a co-op house. So they aren't the same apartment style individual households all bringing out their same waste. They, as a house, accumulate all of their waste together, and they only had a specific number of residents bringing the waste out. So that's why they're in, I guess I'm making a comparison that in an apartment setting, if one person wasn't weighing their material, they would only represent a small fraction of those at the site altogether. So there, everyone is each household bringing out weighing their own material, whereas at the co-op, there was only a small number of people, a subset of residents, who were bringing out the material for the whole household. So that's
So when
why,
they forget,
exactly,
it has a bigger impact.
exactly. So their weigh-in process was a little bit different in that respect,
Okay.
but
And then-
otherwise,
And then you said the cities finished the MOU?
So that was my follow-up.
Okay.
So I think it's important to look at kind of the conclusions that Joe reached that are outlined at the end of the November report, feasibility of broad spectrum implementation. I mean, the upshot really is that it's working, it's a good program, but it's not financially, Self-supporting.
It needs, yeah,
needs a subsidy.
because you're never gonna make that self-supporting. It's not, that was never the plan.
Well, but then it begs the question of who's gonna keep paying for this, and
Well, I think when we were discussing, the pilot and getting that started, the idea was that the district through its contractor, One Sustainable Joe, would help get this started. And then the idea being that the apartment complex and its management maintenance group would eventually take over the management. And that there doesn't seem to be, I guess that the participants at this point, they don't seem to be jumping in to take that over.
I guess what I would say is the bulk of the cost is creating the site. Assembling, I guess, the cost of materials and assembling materials. The maintenance cost is lower, and I think something that properties would be able to assume over like the post-partner period. I think that from the discussions I've had with the existing participants, the property managers are willing to pay the estimated amount for operation going forward for their particular site.
Because they are spending less on waste hauling out of the facility, is that why?
So far, it's been out of an interest in providing the
Okay.
site or providing the service to the residents.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, but what I guess my conclusion is that I don't expect that any site would be willing to pay for the entire cost, including the whole upfront for getting it.
And I guess that's what I meant when I said that, the district through its contractor would get this started. We're gonna bear the brunt of the upfront cost to construct bins and educate residents and stuff. But yeah, then whether it be through, interest, good PR to attract tenants that, hey, we have this program, if this is something you're interested in, that, yes, and ultimately the complex would take it over and manage and run the operation moving forward.
I'm just wondering so we're planning to renew the pilot, but at what point is it no longer a pilot and it's just a program?
Well,
I mean, do we then offer grants to apartment complexes or somebody like wants to stay?
well, that's something that, that we can consider. We have already discussed, in next year's budget, possibly establishing some sort of a community grant program that could go towards something like this. I think, and you correct me, but this next service agreement that the board had already looked at last month, what's in there is some continued support for the existing complexes. But the bulk of the focus and the bulk of the funds are to get this established at additional complexes. But we weren't turning our backs at this point on the existing participants. But we want to start to steer them toward making the commitment to it and either take it over and have this as a part of your community at your complex. I hope that that's what happens. Well, I don't want to see it just go by the wayside and get left and abandoned. But at what point do we say we've done our part and it's up to you to make this continue?
That's exactly my question.
the line I've taken so far, if I may, is I've informed the participating site managers that the intent is for after the partner period, that they will assume the costs of the program going forward. And that, as Tom had mentioned, the proposed contract for phase 2 is designed entirely for new sites with a possibility to provide funding to existing sites on an as-needed basis, where both the district and One Sustainable Joe agree that it's warranted.
Okay.
So it's much less continued support for existing sites than it is establishment of new sites with the possibility to retroactively support existing sites if deemed necessary.
And I
If
guess,
they request it and they know it's the case.
Exactly.
and I guess in my mind, what was for the existing sites was more of a time commitment to resident turnover. Hey, we have a new group of people that are interested, but they have no idea what they're doing. So, okay, we're gonna devote some time to you to educate your new residents that want to do this.
It seems like a YouTube video could be made
And
and
it could.
distributed.
It is.
Has been.
Why not use that? It seems, that the cost
Yeah.
should be zero. I don't know.
Are any of these 4 sites heavy on student population? I mean, are they mostly not students?
I would say they are mostly really ballpark around students.
Half the sites are half within.
Sorry,
sites?
each of the sites have a roughly half student population. So I
Yeah, so
think,
the turnover is an issue.
yes,
Do any of the current participants, I mean, I guess looking specifically at the non-student residents within those complexes, or, is there something that we can do, or any of them seem like they would have an interest in learning enough to spearhead it going forward? And so that we can take a step back
I see.
and they can educate the new residents when they
Right.
come in. And like, you produce some YouTube videos, and,
That should be all you need.
I would say for about half of the sites, so 2 of the sites, there's one site has very few residents and is the co-housing. And I think that they are capable of doing that training going forward. I don't think they will rely very heavily on continued intervention. And I think the same is also true, or I hope to be true, of the co-op for a similar reason, because it's a single household altogether. They have people generally assigned to certain responsibilities in the house, and it seems that they have the intent to be able to transfer that knowledge going forward. Whereas with the 2 more conventional apartment style properties, I don't think that any of the residents are interested in taking it up on behalf of the apartment, and I don't think the property managers are necessarily interested in their staff and maintenance, or I guess staff and managers filling that role. So while I don't think that it would be a zero cost for them to have like continued training or support, I don't think it will be substantial. And that's what I am expecting to be close to a realm that they would be willing to continue to fund going forward. And so far from the discussions we've had and the estimates I've provided, it looks like they will.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully that would be the model then,
Exactly,
as long as you're available to do that kind of follow-up
right,
and they're willing to pay what it costs.
exactly. And so far, that's the, I guess, arrangement and expectation. But again, like I mentioned in the initial report in November, one big question is how long the equipment will last.
Mhm.
Because that will be a substantial cost to replace. That would definitely be a barrier if it were, needed to be replaced on a 2-year basis versus a 5 or 6-year basis.
Well, and in your updated report, you already say there are some hinges and stuff that need to be fixed.
Yeah, there are small modifications that I'm already making with the intention of the second phase, creating greater robustness and longevity for the equipment.
I think my concern is this should be getting us closer to having a program for the whole county, community, rural sites, et cetera. And I feel like that should be the thing that we do next. And it's not, we're still talking about apartment complexes in the city. I just feel like we need a big program. Like this demonstrates that it works on a small scale and that there's a lot of pounds of waste diverted, which is great, right? But I think it would be really good to have some planning focus, maybe starting with staff and coming back to the board, but you know, what can we do to develop a significant program that would be something that would either be a subscription base or something else for county residents across the whole county? Because we had something and they stopped business, they ceased operations. So, you know, what would it take to find, can we do an RFQ and see if there's anyone, you know, in the vicinity who can do this? Should we, I don't know. I just feel like this is like, it's good to have statistical information about the value of the program, you know, number of residents, how many pounds are diverted. That's huge. But I feel like grants to apartment complexes is not the best use of our time in the future. I think getting a good program going would be a better use of our time.
I think it's a both and, because we
Maybe.
have so many people living in apartments that inside and outside the city limits. And so that is a population that you're probably not going to get them to go to a, you know, a site to get rid of.
Unless
their
they're already
homes.
bringing their recycling to one of our facilities.
Unless they're already
Right, and-
very
and-
conscious in doing it.
I mean, you would have to do this as part of a recycling program for residents. I mean, I think recycling, composting goes together for me, but
But for a big program, we need a place that's going to take.
Well,
the compost,
well,
Take the.
we've had, with the organic waste task force, Joe and I are both on, we've had some of these discussions, and there is, Caldwell Incorporated, I think that we referenced in a couple of board meetings, they have a facility outside of Shelbyville, you know, that we've toured, we've looked at, we've talked with them about, you know, what would it take to have collection in Monroe County to get into your facility. And, you know, we're looking at $1,200 a pull,
Probably closer to 7 or 8.
7 or 8, well, then you had the disposal on top. So roughly 1,000, maybe a little bit more. Get a box set and swapped out when it gets full from Monroe County to Shelbyville or to their facility. So, so we've talked with MCCSC, schools participating in such a thing. Is there another entity that we had identified, reached out to?
We talked to Anissa at IU, and she says you guys need to follow up on.
Yeah, and then the sustainability office at IU Bloomington. They're probably a less likely candidate, more inclined to do something on their own, but you wouldn't rule it out completely. So we are looking at an option that is not most cost effective necessarily. And that's part of the problem with doing it is there's nothing local. There's not a facility nearby to take that food waste to. But and that's ultimately, you know, whether it's a private facility, a public-private partnership, or public facility. But the long-term solution is to have a facility in the area that will take that material.
Yeah, I'll just note that the target audience for this particular program is high-density housing, which happens to be in higher concentration in city limits.
Right.
That's, yeah, the difference is they're able to do it on their property, whereas to get a very large or inclusive program requires a processor in a
Right.
whole different structure.
right.
You
I
both-
understand that.
Yeah. I definitely agree, though, that.
I mean, the last thing I heard at the last meeting was, oh, it's a high price tag. Okay, well, what else are we gonna do? Like, we can't just,
I don't know, we used to go out and find one place that's expensive and then go, well, that's it, it's expensive, and we move on. I mean, I just feel like I just asked staff to think about other ways we could accomplish something like this, because it is a huge, huge impact on our place. I mean, it's huge.
Well, I mean, we have the task force, so, I guess this is a request to ask the task force to comb through and see if there's any other options.
What other communities do? There might be an answer out there that's not processor of the scale that, what is it called? Will, is it, that,
Yeah, that's the one outside of Shelby. But
yeah.
there's also another facility we've identified. It's about the same distance, but south toward the river.
Oh, okay.
Um,
But same issue.
So yeah, it's a transportation issue,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is, cost and carbon footprint.
Yep. Yep.
There are options, and if, I think to me, it's a stomachable option if we go into it short term with a plan to do something local in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you gotta have that local plan.
Yeah.
I agree. We
Well,
can't just do that forever. Yeah.
I mean, Bokashi opens up some other possibilities, right? Like you don't have to have
It
a
does,
big
but
farm to do Bokashi.
but you still have, but you still have the solid product that needs a finished. It's as has been described, it's a much shorter term, but it still has to go and sit somewhere and finish composting.
Yeah.
And again, you get into the, I get part of the purpose of looking at the multi-dwelling and we referred to, we'll update at the board meeting, a neighborhood centric model is to stay under the threshold that gets you on items radar. You got to look at registering or permitting a facility. That's 300 square feet is that threshold.
Okay.
Kate, did you have some feedback?
I'm interested in the conversation. I do think that Julie has a point about thinking about longer term solutions, and it just makes me wonder if 300, you said 300 square.
300 square feet is the compost pile size dimensions that is the items threshold that puts you under their purview to be permitted or registered.
That's at the county parks.
You were cutting out, I'm sorry.
Sorry. What if we had setups at the county parks? I mean, I'm just envisioning kind of a way to have places.
Well, that's one of the things that was discussed at last month's meeting with the request that Garden Quest has, and they have partnered with Will Detmer Park to do the
Right.
finish composting of the solid byproduct from the bokashi fermentation. But again, they're still limited to that 300 square foot threshold.
If I may add, one of the, I guess,
If it's a park or not.
Right.
thinking about it in terms of distributed or centralized is how we've been doing it in the task force. And then a
right.
distributed model, no matter what, someone has to be able to maintain the
Right.
unit.
Right.
So there has to be,
Right.
I love
Has to go
these
somewhere.
ideas, but yeah, there still has to be somebody to be able to maintain it, even if that's a small volume. So obviously a high amount of distribution makes it
Yep.
manageable for,
Yep.
a small number of people, but it also significantly limits the amount of waste we're able to take overall. So centralized
that.
could collect from institutions
Yep.
in a way that a decentralized can't.
From what I'm understanding about the bokashi method is it's a less labor intensive. Once you take the solid product fermentation and do the finished composting, because it doesn't sound like it's something that you're
You
gonna
don't
have to churn consistently.
Yeah.
So it's,
But it has to sit for a long time.
I think it was 3 to 4 months.
That's not
Oh,
bad.
for the fermentation process, I thought it was like closer to 2 or 3 weeks.
Right, but
Yeah,
then,
but
But then
then
you have to.
solids.
right, you get the juice off that and you got, and he's talking about burying the solids for, I think, but I thought he said it was like 3 months and then you should be able to.
Yeah, I
Dig it
thought
up
it was,
and have
I thought it was
compost.
even longer than
Oh,
that.
okay.
Well, maybe between county parks and city parks,
Yeah.
there might be.
Oh, I mean, maybe that's, we're leading ourselves into another
300 's
option
not
that
a
we
lot
should
of space.
investigate.
Yeah.
But
Well, anyway, if the task force can keep working on it, I think that would be good. I think we need multiple approaches here, you know? I don't think we should be satisfied.
no, yeah, I mean, and until there is a large scale local option available, then it's, multiple approaches, I think the things that we're doing are the best step that
Yeah.
we can take at this point.
Yeah.
Course that you're talking about have a representative from Extension on it?
Purdue Extension, is that Monroe County Extension Services?
Mhm.
We do not, but they are, I can reach out and grab them in the office, so we can certainly.
Yeah, it just seems like that might be a worthwhile resource.
We can extend that invitation, certainly.
I have a question about a different topic if we can move on.
Well, we have the update on the
Yeah, the
agreement with Winston
The
Salem.
the city has, agreed to the MOU, in essence, they got back to me, we're, fixing some typographical errors and dates that need to be, corrected on for the timing of it, but they have agreed to the MOU, I would ask if there's interest, or to bring the, service agreement, phase 2, the service agreement, back to the board, next week. And then I had a question related to that for the initial pilot agreement. I could not find a record of where the board took action on the MOU.
Huh.
They have delegated that.
I signed off on it, and then once it was signed off on, we brought the service agreement to the board stating that the MOU had been executed.
So the board chair didn't sign it either?
That jogged my memory. I think that was the case. I think it was a matter of timing with the city where the board said that the executive director could proceed with the
So
agreement.
there would have been a vote though to say that.
Right.
Yeah.
I can go back through minutes.
So we did it wrong last
didn't
time. we
look at all
shouldn't
the
do it
minutes.
again. But I have no problem with the board voting to allow Tom to sign. I mean, that's fine. That's no big deal.
But I guess by the same token, if I sign it and we bring everything to the board at next week's meeting and the board doesn't approve the contract, the MOU is null and void.
So are you saying that last year or 2 years ago, you signed it before the board approved the
The resolution
contract?
for the service agreement said that the MOU had been executed.
Had been.
Oh,
And the dating of the signatures indicate that
that's a
that's
legal question.
how it happened.
I'm not paid enough to be a
But
lawyer.
I can go back through the minutes. Perhaps there was a consensus or a vote taken to delegate the MOU. Regardless, I can just tell the city that the MOU will have to go to the board for approval at the next meeting.
That's probably the
Why is
cleanest
that
way
an
to
issue?
do that.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand.
I don't know why it would be.
Shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think that would be the clearest and most transparent way to do it is to bring both the MOU and the contract agreement to the board.
Under separate or the same resolution? It would be under separate resolutions, wouldn't they?
No, I would just do
No.
the same one.
Be on the same
I think
resolution?
Yeah,
you can just reference the MOU.
yeah. It's a package deal.
That means I gotta rewrite the thing. I can't just update it. No, that's fine. So I guess, so the question is, given that the city has agreed to the MOU, is the committee agreeable to that resolution and the service agreement being on the agenda for the board meeting?
Yes. Kate is shaking her head. Yes.
Nodding,
Yes.
yes.
Shaking, yeah, nodding. That's what I meant to say.
So there's a consensus to bring that to the board at the next one.
Yep.
That's what Okay. All I have on that issue.
Thank you. Julie, you had another topic?
What is the transition date for Rumpke service?
Monday,
Um,
2 days ago, or yesterday.
yeah, so is there any information available at the rural sites? Or I don't see it on the website about the new expanded,
I need to get with Joey. Joey was trying to clarify some things with Rumpke on the coated cartons. We know and we understand, but I think that there was also potentially plastic or paper changes. But as soon as we get that clarification, we'll get information posted and we will get new signage ordered to indicate the changes.
okay,
Social media.
Post.
where do the wax cartons go? Do they go in paper? They don't go in cardboard. Okay. I mean, I think it's a big deal, and
It is.
we just started blasé about it, but I think it's a big deal.
I mean, the coated cartons by themselves.
It's,
Just a little bit before you came. We were like,
I mean,
"What?"
I,
The coated cartons themselves, it's a substantial amount of material.
yeah. Putting out the little plastic spouts and rinsing them out and keeping them, so I'm ready to get rid of them.
Oh, yeah.
Your basket of,
That we now potentially get revenue.
Oh, yeah, what about the little plastic spouts?
I cut them out.
Do those need to be cut out?
Mr. Goins? Yes. The plastic spouts on the coated cartons.
On the milk cartons, yeah, you should take those off.
Does have to, yeah.
Same with the folded tech, you know, those.
What about the-
Yeah.
Broth comes in.
The plastic
square one.
piece that's kind of built into the carton.
Yeah, cut it
Not-
out.
Not just,
You can leave that in, that's
Oh, okay,
not enough contaminant.
okay. Cut mine out.
Well, that's the message we need to get across.
Yep.
I would say cutting them out is the best practice.
Yeah. Cut them out when I can, how about that? But I got a basket full of them ready to go. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a huge deal, really. But I think, yeah, anything you could do to flash it on the website and be helpful.
You can do that.
Yeah.
My social media person is in Peru right now.
Well,
I
I'm
will
sure
do my
somebody,
best.
I'm sure somebody.
for
can
them.
manage
I will
it.
do my best to
I'm sure
make it
somebody
happen.
can manage it.
Is that Kayla or Alyssa?
Lisa. But Kayla can, I'm confident Kayla can develop or use Canva and develop something that we can post and put some text with.
Yeah, but get it on the website too, 'cause it's, some of us don't do social media. And I know a lot of folks that do look at the website and go, what can I bring? What can't I bring to recycle? We direct people to the website.
Okay, any other topics that committee
I'm
members wanted to bring up?
I'm either gonna be virtual for the board meeting or not able to attend. So, yeah. Why I?
Julie, can you chair the July board meeting? Because I will not be able to attend.
Yeah,
Well, that,
and we have budget stuff in July.
the budget, the first presentation for the budget, but no action. at
Right,
that time,
in July.
other than
Okay.
Quick discussion and
Do we need to talk, so are we gonna talk about the budget at the executive committee meeting
we certainly can.
in July?
And I would anticipate I would provide you a preview of the presentation, but go to the
Okay.
board.
Yeah,
Uh,
I will be able to make that.
Good,
The other, I guess the other thing I need to ask to have on the agenda for the June board meeting is the joint meeting with the CAC in July to review the budget, which historically has been either piggyback on the board meeting or the CAC meeting. Board meeting tends to be the easier one to do because the board members are already available in there.
I would do that if you can.
So, but need to
I would
confirm,
do that if you can.
confirm that with the board
With the board.
at the
Okay.
meeting.
All right, make sure we have a quorum. Okay, got it. Anything else for the good of the order? Nope. Okay, well, I don't have anything else, so. I think we can adjourn.
Yep.